Hello and welcome to your IBM update for October 2024, a snapshot of news and views and what's been happening in the IBM community in the past 4 weeks as reported by Proximity, your premier partner for IBM solutions and software. So in August of this year, I covered a presentation by Andy Ewins at the iPower event. This was on developing in Python on IBM. Now, Python is one of the big three native web languages on IBM, and it's probably the most modern and clean language available, and it certainly gets all the buzz these days. Nearly as talked about is Node.js, an efficient JavaScript runtime. But of all the big three, it's perhaps PHP, possibly the most popular web language on the planet, that doesn't receive the publicity it deserves. This was covered by a piece by Alex Woody of the IT Jungle at the end of October, in which he covered an article by Alan Seiden, IBM champion, modern language expert and award-winning speaker, on what's new and exciting in PHP on IBM in 2024. Now, in the article, Alan explains that people seem to have forgotten that PHP is just as robust a development language as RPG is on IBM. It's solid, and you don't get the foibles and idiosyncrasies that you would when you're developing with Python and Node.js. And while it's been a mainstay on the IBM for nearly 20 years now, it continues to evolve. For example, Alan explains that PHP is mature, and as such enjoys toolkits that the other big two would be envious of. From connectivity, APIs, frameworks and resource, it's all there for the IBM developer, where similar resources for Python and Node.js are, well, a little bit behind. With this continual refinement in code and toolkits comes advantages, with each new version becoming faster, moving from 32 to 64-bit, for example, and the ability to utilize more memory more efficiently, more than halving web page load times. And as PHP was developed as a web development language from the very beginning, it's very practical. It's a tool for web developers that comes ready with everything you need to get started and build compelling applications without fear of unavailable packages or what modules you want. The main extensions are built in, so you'll never have any compatibility issues. And that's why many vendors on IBM have used PHP to build their top-tier tools, including the likes of Fresh with WebSmart and Curbstone 2. But the crux of the presentation that Alan presented was in regards to what's new and exciting within PHP in 2024. In security, we enjoy JSON Web Tokens, built-in support for cryptography, SSL, TSL, and authentication methods. With APIs, PHP now supports open API standards with Swagger and Postman integration, full REST and SOAP support, with JSON now including validation. You could also call PHP from your RPG or CL code, always nice to have. DB2 enjoys updated extensions and PDO data object support. Asynchronous programming has also been a significant enhancement in PHP, allowing PHP scripts to handle multiple tasks at once. This can greatly improve performance when handling batch processing or making concurrent requests to IBM resources without blocking the application. And finally, it provides programming best practice. While you can still do things like undefined variables, it'll warn you that this could probably create lag. So easy to use, forgiving, while providing some backup and guidance too. Now, if you want the full details of what's new and exciting within PHP, Alan's 1-hour presentation, which was originally presented at the Toronto User Group, can be found in the link somewhere below. Okay, but for those who wish to dip their toe into PHP, where do you start? What should you expect? And how does this all compare to the other big three or big two languages available? Well, following Alan's article, I took the opportunity to speak with him to discuss this and all things PHP. Alan, welcome to the IBM I Update.
Thank you, Andy. Great to be here. Thank you for all you do for the community.
Oh, it's a pleasure. It's a pleasure. Now, Alan, you've written a lot about the exciting updates in PHP for IBM I. Perhaps you could start by sharing some of the key innovations in PHP that make it the go-to language for modernizing applications on IBM I.
Yeah, what's great about PHP is it's been here a long time, but like IBM I itself, it continues to evolve. It's stable, it's community-driven, and it's really strong, solid, and won't let you down. And so in recent years, we've added additional ways to connect to the IBM I database, ODBC, PDO ODBC, and new security enhancements. And the cool thing is it works really well with APIs. People always think of Node as the only way to go. Node is great, but PHP has had JSON capabilities for a long time and kind of all the things you want. And they've had now faster ways to validate JSON and a lot of cool stuff that we like in it.
Excellent. Now, Alan, I was at Common Europe last year, and I caught your web language shootout presentation. Now, in that, I believe on balance that PHP was the best choice. Why do you believe that PHP stands out over the other modern web languages such as Python or Node.js for IBM I users?
Yeah, I mean, it always depends, as always, but the good thing about PHP is it's totally established. All the pieces you need are there and built in through the extensions, at least the way we package it, but for Force 2. The extensions are there. You're not having to construct your whole world of modules and packages from who knows where. Now, that's a strength of those other languages, actually. There's so many choices. But then you have to become the master and become knowledgeable about all those and what's changing with them. How's the security of all those modules? If they get deprecated, what do you do? Will they build on IBM I? You're kind of responsible for making sure they work on IBM I. That is the ones that IBM doesn't provide. IBM provides a certain number of them. And the rest, I'm not trying to put down those, hey, it's okay, you're leading me right there, I'll go with it. PHP's the best. PHP's the best. Now you have the choice, PHP has a community too through Composer. It has a community of all different elements and libraries you can install too that are out there. But there's a lot built in for the basics that you normally need day to day.
No, I try and stay agnostic as possible, but I know that PHP is perhaps the most popular, but least publicized. So compared to the other languages on IBM I, how agile and fast can you develop in PHP?
I think it's pretty decent. The thing is, it's so straightforward to use. I think for the average person who's come from an RPG background or other kinds of traditional programming, you kind of like a program go from start to finish. I can read it, I understand what it's doing. I'm not having to, I don't know. For me, that's how my brain works. It's got a lot of nice things that make it easy to work with, including some really nice frameworks. It has popular frameworks, Laravel and Mezio and Slim and things like that. They give you a good structure. So it kind of gets you started. The other thing about PHP is you don't have to be an expert on object-oriented code or anything like that. It certainly provides it, but you don't have to do that. Like I started with one line of PHP code. I should have said this first, Andy. I started with, so you can edit me, but I started with one line of PHP code. And that just to send an email somewhere. And my boss, oh, that was good. The client was happy with that. And then it became, oh, I accept it. So it's easy to start small without having to create a whole world for yourself.
Fantastic. Okay, so based upon starting small to going large scale, perhaps you can share some success stories where PHP has been used to significantly enhance IBM I systems in terms of both performance, functionality, or scalability. Have you any experience with providing such solutions?
Yeah, absolutely. I do have one good case study. If people are familiar with Curbstone Corporation, they provide credit card solutions based on IBM I. I guess their idea is to get the lowest cost, most efficiency. And they use our site PHP Plus, actually. They're a PCI validated payment solution based on IBM I. And their portal systems running PHP Plus process over $8 billion in credit card payments annually with 99.9% uptime availability. And in addition, they also have browser-based, iframe-based interfaces in PHP and served from IBM i. It's extremely reliable. In fact, we worked with them. We hammered that thing with millions and millions of transactions and made sure it worked and figured out how to really make it that stable and reliable. So that's real money you're talking about, and it's important. That's one I could bring up.
Fantastic. So how does PHP integrate with traditional IBM i tools such as with RPG and CL? Are there specific use cases where this integration delivers exceptional results?
Yeah, well, I would say it works in both directions. So say you're writing an RPG program, but you need something that PHP provides. Maybe there's a software development kit, or you're connecting to some service and you have a PHP code that does it. Your RPG can call PHP either directly. There's an open source tool called QSH-on-I by Richard Schoen, or QShoni, however you want to say it, that does the job and brings results back. But I think a real crown jewel of PHP on IBM i is the PHP toolkit that I was involved, IBM and Zen, and then me, and we maintain it now. It's the most mature of the various toolkits compared to Node, the Node and Python ones. And it's extremely flexible. It has good logging. You can see what's going on to troubleshoot anything. So we use that all the time, and a lot of people use that. It's fast, dependable, and extremely flexible. Anything you can do in calling an RPG program or COBOL program, this can do. Data structures, in, out, returns, everything. 99% anyway.
That's amazing. So now a lot of people who will be watching or even reading this blog post will be RPG developers. Mm-hmm. Maybe are just dipping their toe into the PHP arena. So how does PHP compare to RPG in terms of functionality and ease of use on the IBM i? And are there specific areas where PHP excels over RPG, or indeed vice versa?
Yeah, that's great. I think RPG is so wonderful for business logic. It's so wonderful and efficient. So it's just back there, just chugging, doing its job day in, day out. Its connection to DB2 is the most efficient way to go. It's got a connection right out of the box. PHP is a general language, so that means people who know other languages are very comfortable in it. It's general. It works well with SQL. It's made for web and APIs. Out of the box, made for web and APIs. It's got everything you need for those. So I think that's where it has a strength. Anything with strings, dealing with strings and text, like the web is based on text, basically. It's really good that way. RPG is best with database. Of course, RPG is getting more and more powerful, but we see this blend working. Like to make a website, I'm not going to make a website in RPG probably now, but it's fantastic as an API server behind the scenes if you have those skills and want to do it that way. But, so I'll put it that way.
Okay, so if I was an experienced RPG programmer, how easy would it be for me to adapt my skills, my skill base to PHP?
Mm-hmm. I think PHP is the easiest of the web languages for RPG people to learn. That's been proven through almost 20 years that PHP has been on the platform. I think the two factors would be, do you have any experience with some other languages too? That would help, any language. And second, have you done any web HTML work before? I think where the RPG person now has an amazing role is in developing APIs in RPG. And then you maybe, because the trend is to kind of have other front ends, React or something, but everything's possible. But I think RPG for APIs is fantastic. But you could definitely apply your skills. If you have SQL capability, SQL, okay? I think PHP is not hard for you if you know SQL, and if you have some experience with HTML, just doing a web page. But you can do that as a hobby. So many people did it as a hobby. My first experience with PHP was writing like a web scraper for a friend who wanted to find out what books she had checked out at the local library, and I made a PHP program to kind of go to the library site and pull it out and make a print out for. People do this as a hobby because PHP is open source. You can get it for free on your computer at home, and that's the way to learn it. If your boss won't let you install it on your IBM i, you can do it on your computer at home. That's one of the nice things about PHP and other open source. You can just try it. No one has to see you trying and learning and failing and learning again and stumbling and getting up. You could do it yourself.
No, and it's platform independent, of course, and lots of resources out there. Are there similarities or learning resources that make perhaps this transition from RPG to PHP smoother?
Well, I think if you actually have a real project you're trying to achieve, even a small thing, maybe a dashboard to show some data that's in your system in a nice web-based way. So I think having something concrete to try, instead of just saying, let me learn this, do it something with your own data that you know well already. I would say that would help. Yeah.
Okay, so, but for businesses considering modernizing their IBM systems using PHP, what do you believe would be the first steps you'd recommend they take?
For modernizing, I think have a clear goal of what you're doing. You try to get some big business benefits, big benefits. So probably a smart move if you're trying to get buy-in is say, what would the executives benefit from? And sometimes that might mean showing them data in a way that makes sense to them. Give them Excel exports to Excel, export to Excel, things they like and understand. And business data probably is a good place to start. I've seen that be effective. Like, oh, this is nice. It's like getting buy-in from them. But have some goals. There's really some amazing ideas of things that are possible. Depending, you could reuse your business logic. You don't have to rewrite. You do not have to rewrite all the RPG that you did if you don't want. You can call it PHP. There's many ways to approach that depending what your needs are. But look for what the business is looking for, and then you can say yes to them. This includes, by the way, integration. You can integrate with Salesforce, integrate with all kinds of other cloud-based systems using PHP, for example.
No, and I believe that there's a lot of support out there. And how active is the PHP community when it comes to developing in IBM?
It's actually pretty good. Like Zen started doing that 20 years ago, some years ago. And now Calvin on my team is one of the 3 release managers for PHP around the world, not just IBM, but for PHP itself. So he's maintaining the ODBC components and the database thing. So we're right on top of everything. And we make sure the whole world knows about IBM through PHP. The whole world knows if you scan the PHP code base and the issues, they're seeing the word IBM in there all the time. We're making sure it happens. So just put it that way.
Okay, so plenty of support channels, forums, and communities. Any more that you could perhaps recommend to a brand new starter?
It would be so you can start on your PC, you can start it on the IBM. You can even use our PHP for free if you like. Get started with that. Have a goal in mind. If you have a mentor of some kind, it's helpful to ask advice of. It's something we do as a part of the business, but you can find someone to help you if you want help, ask questions. And there are mid-range forum, and other places to get help. Come to a conference. There's like a consultant's code that if you're at a conference, you have to answer questions for free. So funny, I don't know why that happened, but that's the way it is. So if you're coming up to Toronto next week, for example, find somebody and ask some questions. Bring your computer. Say, look, I'm trying to do this and it's not working. How do I do it? Actually have your computer there. If you just ask me a question in the air, I can't. If you show me something, look, here it is. I can fix it right with you on the spot. So,
no, absolutely, and indeed, there is an event happening in the UK too, in the Midlands on the 7th of November. So, if anyone's watching this before then, do that.
And your team has those skills. Your team uses PHP, I believe.
Oh, we do. Yes, indeed. Now, in terms of performance and security, how does PHP on IBM handle the demands of the modern business applications, particularly in industries such as finance and manufacturing?
Yep. Well, first of all, in terms of performance, the performance improves every year. In fact, the PHP team is not afraid to remove some old stuff that was like bad practices to make it work faster. I've been told one of our clients said that between PHP 7.4 to 8.3, they got a 50% speed increase. So it's quite amazing. So keep things up to date. In terms of security, there's updates every month. So the key thing is to stay updated with your PHP versions, and then you'll be protected. PHP is actually very good at it. For instance, if they find a security vulnerability to fix, they don't tell people the details. They kind of say, upgrade to this and it'll fix it. They're very good. So I think you need to have a plan to stay updated more than you did with RPG at an operating system boundary. You got to say, I've got to have a plan. Maybe every quarter do it. Be alert for any updates that are coming through, and then you're pretty good. And also, of course, keep your encryption going on your IBM.
Yeah, of course.
Certificates and stuff like that.
Yeah, it makes good sense. Now, we've spoken about the community a little,
right.
But what do you believe are the most exciting tools and frameworks in particular in the PHP ecosystem today that can enhance the capabilities on IBM?
I would say for a full application, Laravel is extremely popular now. It provides even front end to help with the browser development. Slim is very nice for APIs. It's easy. I've gotten only good feedback from that. We told our partner in Japan about it. They loved Slim. Mezio is another good one that came originally from Zend, and now it's on its own independent foundation. So those are good. But I do suggest learn the basics of the language first, and then you understand why you need a framework. So I would say if you can do some proof of concept and get to know the language before you go full out, because then you'll know which parts to use of the framework. And don't be like a slave to a framework where you think this is the ultimate. It's there to help you. A framework is only there to help you.
Got you. Okay, no, good advice. So looking ahead, how do you see PHP evolving in the context of IBM i?
I find it a thrill that we are actually so involved that we know how it works and can fix things and make it better. Yeah. You're not waiting for, okay, some great IBM in the sky. Is like, we're actually here doing it. And so I feel very confident. There's a new release every year, first of all, from the PHP community. The next one is 8.4 at the end of November. Every month is a new small minor update as well. The number of things getting fixed in the database connections. Here, look, on IBM i, we care about the database. Data is our world on IBM i. That's the most important thing. We're not fooling around here, no games. We're here about the data and handling huge amounts of data. And so that's the best thing. So I love to see the database connectors improve and the ability to integrate with RPG. So I just feel good that we all love speed, and that's just getting better every time. Whenever it gets faster and faster, I'm just so happy to see that. Absolutely. So, and of course, I've also learned, this is something I didn't know before. We all can all learn, no matter how old you get. There's still ability to learn. So I learned that PHP on the IBM i actually takes advantage of the single level store that this amazing Steve Will always talks about, where it's extremely fast database connectivity on the i because of what the database team has done. So we take advantage of the amazing work that IBM does.
No, that's terrific. It sounds like the perfect marriage between DB2 and a modern language. Marriage made in heaven. And now finally, what future trends or developments should IBM i users keep their eye on, in your own opinion?
What should they watch for? I think open source is real now. Enterprise companies are using it. So now it's the time to treat it like it's enterprise. The days of, let's click yum and just install everything, whatever. It's like, that's fine, but I think you need strategy and maybe some way to say, when are we going to update? How do we test it? Do we have a development partition to test on? Like, we got to act like professionals and have a development partition, test, QA, have all those things when you possibly can, or at least have a way to test, have a way to drop back. So open source is incredible. It's been wonderful for me. It's opened up these new horizons where I know there's no limits to what we can do on the IBM i platform. And now it's the time to add back that professionalism that we always had with RPG, DB2, and all, the traditional ways of working.
Okay, that's perfect. Thank you very much, Alan. And my thanks to Alan for spending the time with me. So Alan spoke much about developing in PHP and its advantages therein. But to put this into context a little bit, I want to provide a real-life scenario on how businesses have taken these advantages. So I spoke with Pete Samways, colleague and friend, technical director at StreamTech, a company that's developed a cloud-based solution programmed mostly in PHP and certainly on the IBM i. And I started by asking him on an overview of the application.
Absolutely, yes. As you say, it's a transport and logistics management system with a real focus on sort of customer service and tracking. We started developing it probably about 7 or 8 years ago. It's browser-based. It's delivered in a browser. It's written primarily in PHP, but there is significant elements of RPG in the background. It uses the DB2 database on IBM i, and we currently have in excess of 230 customers using the software.
Terrific. Now, what was the reasoning behind developing this on IBM i in PHP?
Proximity, we're a PHP shop, an RPG shop, but we wanted to find some way of bringing modern look and feel to RPG applications for our existing customers. At the time when we started developing Stream, probably the best language to do that with on IBM I was PHP. Others have come along since. Personally, I'm still a strong advocate for PHP for various reasons. I'm sure we'll cover that later. One of the aspects that we really needed to explore was how easy it would be for us to take our current sort of crop of RPG developers that we had at the time, most of whom we still have, and convert them, and move them over to use PHP as their primary development language, because in a lot of places you don't have those skills. If you are primarily using IBM I, you don't necessarily have those sort of web-based skills. So that was the main reasoning behind it, I think.
Okay, now, how did you integrate PHP with traditional IBM I features such as db/do and, of course, RPG in your logistics application? And were there any challenges in making these systems work seamlessly?
Well, yes, as it's delivered on IBM I, at the time, the main way to make use of PHP was using the Zen server, which was, again, at the time, delivered free as part of the IBM I ecosystem. And as part of that, there are a couple of very useful things if you wanted to integrate with your more traditional elements on the IBM I. The first of which is the what was then called the XML toolkit. It's now called the PHP toolkit. Now, that's a piece of open source software that allows you to very easily talk in PHP to your more traditional resources like RPG programs, CL programs. You can look at all files, all of that kind of stuff. You can look at job queues and the rest of it. So that's, as I say, open source. It's supported by the IBM open source community, still available, and it's still the way we use to sort of call RPG programs from within Stream. The second thing is there's basically a PHP extension, a database layer, if you like, that allows you to talk to the db/do database very easily. It provides functions within PHP that allow you just to create connections to the database, query it, perform updates, all of that kind of thing, all of that good stuff, using SQL, basically.
Oh, okay, so you would say it was fairly straightforward to work with IBM I on db/do database using PHP?
Absolutely. It's as easy as it would be to talk to any other kind of database that you might more traditionally associate with PHP, MySQL, MariaDB, whatever. Yeah, all the same functions are available to allow you to dive into your db/do database.
Yeah. Now, you are a seasoned programmer, a seasoned developer, Pete. I think I'm okay in saying that. But there must have been some common challenges in developing PHP on IBM I. Can you provide some details on that?
I would say not really, because compared to any other platform, developing with PHP on IBM I, it's basically the same. All of the syntax and the rest of it is the same as you would be if you were writing PHP on Windows, Linux, wherever.
Okay,
I don't really.
Straightforward.
It was really, if you're a PHP developer, you can develop on IBM I as easily as you could develop on any other platform.
On any other platform, and it's platform independent, of course. Now, you did mention some tools earlier, but repositories, frameworks, are there any ones that you've used that you could recommend to the community?
Yeah, absolutely. If you're going to be writing PHP, you'll need a good IDE, sort of an integrated development environment tool. There's lots out there. There's some free ones. The one that we primarily use now is one called PHP Storm. That is a paid tool, but it's a great tool. It allows you to write your PHP, deploy it onto IBM I seamlessly. And it gives you all kinds of stuff like hinting to sort of make sure if you're making common mistakes, it will pick those up for you. It integrates with source repositories, so that's another important thing. So we use GitHub basically to store all our source. You could just have your own hosted Git repository to store it in. We did used to do that. We now move to GitHub. And beyond the sort of source side of things, frameworks are a real strong tool. Certainly if you're starting from scratch as well on PHP. We've used Yi, Laravel, Laminas as it is now, which is what was once a Zend framework, and they give you a real sort of leg up in terms of when you start developing. A load of stuff is just there provided for you. And then finally, in terms of the actual serving of that PHP to a browser, there's a HTTP server for IBM. That's a built-in one. We also use one called Nginx to provide sort of load balancing layer above that.
Okay, so in addition to Apache, you use
Nginx.
Nginx, right? Okay.
Yeah.
Now,
yeah. Again, another one of those things that the open source community on IBM has brought to the table. There's lots of good stuff out there.
Fantastic. Okay, that's really useful. Now, logistics systems need to handle, I imagine, incredible amounts of data and transactions too. But how does PHP perform under these conditions on IBM I? And how do you ensure scalability and efficiency?
In terms of data handling, it's what the platform's good at, really. We haven't really had any challenges around the database in terms of the speed of it. There's a real close coupling there that you if you were to maybe go into a cloud environment or whatever, you don't necessarily get, where you've got the database and the actual processing all happening on the same server effectively, so next door to each other. So that means that the performance of the database is brilliant when using it with PHP, as it is with RPG and other sort of more native languages. I
can imagine it. The marriage between PHP and the transactional platform of IBM I is a perfect synergy.
Absolutely. Yeah. In terms of sort of performance and resources, we have had challenges over the years, most of which we managed to solve by sort of partitioning off resource to make sure that certain parts of the system get what they need. Basically, PHP is not a traditional workload for IBM I, but you can make it work on there definitely. We have specific sort of memory pools that we use for the web server side of things, sort to make sure that has all of the oomph that it needs. So, traditionally on IBM I, you'd have a spool pool that would have quite a lot of memory in it. Ours has virtually nothing because it doesn't need it. We need that memory elsewhere. So there are challenges, but there are approaches you can take that will help you overcome.
But having worked with PHP, do you believe it offers advantages over other languages when it comes to developing logistic applications or applications with large transactional volumes on the IBM I? And if so, what would you say they are?
I wouldn't say that specifically logistics applications, but as you say, sort of any heavy transactional application. It's good at handling that heavy workflow, especially on IBM I. As I said before, with that close coupling of database and processor, it really can handle those workloads very well. In terms of other advantages, as a language, it's very quick to learn. There's a lot of it's huge. There's a figure that's bandied about for PHP, which is somewhere around 40% of the internet runs in some way on PHP, and because of that, that popularity. There's lots of resources online, so it helps you. If you need to find the answer to a particular problem, often it's been solved by someone else on Stack Overflow or wherever.
Now, logistics often involve handling sensitive data. So how does PHP and the IBM I platform help with ensuring security and compliance?
As we all know, and again, it's a mantra of some people within the community, the IBM I is incredibly secure. As long as you configure it right, it's incredibly secure. I don't think anyone's ever written a virus that runs on IBM I. So in terms of that, the security, that built-in security, that baked-in security, if you like, it's all there. That's a real advantage. We used encryption, disk-level encryption as well, to make sure everything's sort of secure when the data is static, if you like, on the server. And PHP and web applications in general, there's a certain level of security that you can build into that as well. So encryption in transit, all of that's available even when you're using PHP on IBM I.
Again, a perfect marriage of security and availability.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah.
Now, based upon that, what has the feedback been from the customer base? Do they really know that it's on IBM i?
Well, that's an interesting thing. If you were to ask a customer what platform is Stream running on, they wouldn't know. It's absolutely completely invisible to the end user that it's running on IBM i. As far as they're concerned, it's just some software in a browser or in an app on their phone. So in terms of the user experience, it's the same as if you were running PHP on Linux or whatever. It's all the same experience to the end user.
Yes, absolutely. So based upon your experience, what best practices would you recommend for other developers looking to build similar kind of large-scale applications using PHP on IBM i?
I would say a key one that, and again, as I said earlier, this is not something we did initially with Stream. It would be a use of the framework. It gives you so much pre-built functionality and a real structure that you can build within. So I think that would be my first recommendation to anyone starting off with PHP on any platform, not just on IBM i.
You mentioned 3 earlier. Pete, would you recommend one in particular?
Oh, no, that's like asking to pick my favourite child, Andy. That's not really very fair. I think currently I would probably lean towards Laravel. It's very well supported. There's again, as with most things PHP, there's so much information out there on the internet that you can dive into. But yeah, Laravel would probably be my number 1 pick at the moment. Beyond that, source control obviously is important, especially if you've got a large team doing stuff. I mean, the de facto standard is Git in some form or another. And on top of that, if you can, especially if you're starting from scratch, I would suggest some kind of automated testing from day one. PHP lends itself very well to the unit tests, so you can build code with the tests built in, and that makes it, when it comes to actually testing the software for a new release and pushing it out there, it can make life a lot easier than otherwise.
I can imagine. Now, are there any future enhancements or features you're planning to add to the application?
Well, we're very much customer driven, so a certain amount of what we do is driven by customer requirements. Beyond that, there's been some talk of seeing if we can find some way of bringing elements of AI into the system. I'm not sure I can say much more on that.
No, that's fine. Though AI is very much a hot topic.
Yeah.
I'm going to see what happens there. So how do you see PHP continuing to evolve for such use cases on the IBM i?
It's still a strong contender. As I say, there's other technologies there that sort of open source languages and so forth that offer similar functionality or whatever to develop in. As long as IBM keeps supporting PHP, and as far as I'm aware, they will do, and the community around it, I think it's still going to be a strong contender for anything that you want to do web-based on IBM i.
Yes, I fully agree. And I think out of all the languages outside of RPG, it's the most supported.
Absolutely, yeah. That breadth of knowledge that's available out there, it's great. Yeah, as long as it keeps pace with the current PHP versions, and there's no reason to think that it won't do. I mean, the 2 big players in terms of PHP on i, there's Zend and there's Alan Seiden group. Both are keeping things up to date, shall we say,
yes.
with what's going on in the world of PHP.
Fantastic. Thank you very much, Pete, for your insight into what can be done using PHP on IBM i.
You're very welcome. It's been great speaking to you, Andy.
Thank you. And we'll have more on this subject next month. But that's it for this month's update, and I do hope you had a wonderful Halloween. For more like this, please see our blog on the Proximity website. But for now, I'm Andrew Nicholson. We are Proximity, the IBM i partners that are in your corner. We'll see you next time. Goodbye.